Hello everyone and welcome to what could be the game of the year. As some of you have mentioned in the comments, this is one of the most requested games from round 3. It is American Grandmaster Conrad Holt versus Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. Now, I don't know if we're considering formats other than the classical for Game of the Year award, but if so, this game definitely stands a chance. So let's check it out and why so many of you recommended it. Like I said, game 3, round 3, Holt versus Mamedyarov. Conrad opens with pawn to d4. We have knight to f6 by Shakhriyar, pawn to c4, g6, knight to c3, and pawn to d5 going for pawn to d5 going for the Gruenfeld defense. We have pawn to e3, pawn to e6, and now c captures on d5. Already an incredibly rare move. There are only a couple of games online that were played in this exact continuation, so it is now as of move 5. We can consider this to be a completely new game. And okay, e captures. We have bishop to d3, bishop to g7, and knight g to e2. Better than developing the knight to f3, as you will also have support, ability to support e4 by playing f3 first. We have castles, and now pawn to a5, stopping pawn to b4 from white, bishop to d2, and now rook to e8. We have rook to c1, and now pawn to c6. So the center is nicely defended. We have pawn to f3. You have now support for e4 if needed, and pawn to b5. And here just queen to e1, preparing to shift the queen over to the king side. And while you could advance the pawn to b4, it doesn't really make all that much sense since you free up the a4 square for the knight. Knight b to d7. We have queen to f2, also you have additional support for the e3 pawn, and now knight to b6. We have pawn to a3 and knight to c4, and the knight is a nuisance here to say the least, so Conrad eliminates it. Bishop captures on c4, b captures, and now knight to a4. We have rook to b8, and now rook f to e1. Pawn to h5, now comes bishop to c3. The bishop also helps out with the defense of the pawn on b2, and if you execute e4, also the d4 pawn will be nicely defended. Bishop to h6, putting pressure on that e3 pawn, and now Conrad just moves the knight, so the rook supports the pawn as well. Pawn to h4, kicks away the knight, knight to f1, and now even pawn to h3. We have g3, and now knight to h7, making room for f5 to be played. So knight to d2, and knight to g5. We have pawn to e4, finally executing that central thrust, and now d captures on e4, f captures, and pawn to f5. And okay, we could say that Shakhriyar is maybe opening up his king a bit too much, and that maybe his pieces aren't really in the game. But he knows what he's doing, and our good friend the engine agrees with him. The engine rates this at maybe a +1, +1.5 for black. So pawn to d5, or it makes sense to open up this diagonal, and now f captures on e4. We have queen to d4, now threatening queen to h8, and just king to h7. Now the rook guards the h8 square, and now pawn to d6. And this is where things get really interesting. We have rook to b5. Now the rook also gets to help out with the stuff happening on the 5th rank. Also, you can shift the rook over to f5 if needed. But now knight to c5, gaining more control over that d7 square. And here comes bishop to f5, not allowing the bishop to be buried there on c8. But there was an even better continuation. Here I'm just going to show it because it's a lot of fun. E3 would have won the game for Shakhriyar. Point being that after everything gets traded off here, you will capture the pawn on d6, and now white really has nothing. For example, knight c to e4, you attack the queen, you go after the knight because you do have to do something about the knight. That knight is hanging on c5. So let's see you do this. Doesn't really matter. Knight captures also opens up an attack towards the queen, and after queen captures, you will just pick up that bishop. And okay, you do have some checks like queen d7 check, king to h6, queen to f8 check. You will hide the king on h5, and if queen to h8 check, you will just bring back the queen, and the white cannot capture on c8 because the rook on c1 is also hanging. So you'd have to go back with something like queen c3 to defend the rook, but now bishop g4, and that's pretty much it. Not much to be done here for white, as white is just down a full piece. Even if this is captured, like queen e3 check, king f1, rook f1 check, and white gets checkmated. Pawn to e3 here, just winning for Mamedyarov, but he went for bishop to f5, as this is a rapid game, so you don't have all that much time, and now he misses this wonderful g4 move. And with g4, you're forcing bishop to capture, and if bishop captures, then knight gets to capture on e4, and then white is very much back in the game. So here Mamedyarov tried e3 now, but here e3 just doesn't work. d7, and now what do you play here? Well, the only move left is bishop captures on d7, or maybe you could go for some rook to e6 ideas, but that just looks weird. I'm gonna show it, but it's perpetual at the most, and if knight captures on d7, e captures on d2, you have knight to f6 check, and now you will give up the queen, of course. Queen captures, d captures on e1, rook captures on e1, rook captures on e1, and now bishop captures on e1, bishop to g7, you attack the queen, and now just queen captures on c6. Of course, you cannot capture on g5, the rook defends that, and if you capture on c6, now even rook captures on b2, and that's it. Black has all the drawing chances in the world, and even if white makes a little misstep here, it's actually black who's playing for the win here. Like, you capture a pawn carelessly here, already knight f3 check ends the game. Like king f1, knight captures on h2 check, king g1, and now rook to g2 with check, forces the king to h1, and now just knight f3. There's no defense against rook to g1 checkmate. So it would be possible if bishop captures on d7 was played, but here e captures on d2 was played. And now this is a problem. Look at this. D captures on e8, brings another queen into the game, and now queen captures on e8 was played. And believe it or not, here Conrad has a forced checkmate in 5. So feel free to pause the video and checkmate Mamedyarov in 5 moves while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on not being overly materialistic. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is rook to e7 check. And this is one of the reasons why, as soon as I saw this, I thought about the game, you know, Steinitz versus Count von Bardeleben with the bravest rook in chess history, because here we have another such example where the rook continues checking without the possibility of capture, because now if the rook is captured, queen to h8 is checkmate. So you cannot capture, you have to play knight to f7, but now rook captures on f7 check. And again, you cannot capture due to checkmate on h8. So king to g8, and now rook to g7 with check. Again, the rook cannot be captured due to checkmate, so you're going to have to move the king, or you go to f8, but that's not much better. You allow queen to f6, and now rook to e7 check with an unstoppable checkmate. King to g8 will be played, and now finally queen to h8 will be checkmate. But interestingly, Conrad doesn't find it. He doesn't play rook e7 check. He plays rook captures on e8, and of course he's still threatening checkmate. But now Mamedyarov finds a clean way back into the game, or, you know, he's still gonna be in a lost position, but it's still possible to get back into the game. He plays d captures on c1, brings a queen into the game with check, king to f2. And now the problem is you can't really continue checking. Whatever you try, you're just gonna, well, let's say you try queen c2 check, just rook back to e2, defends, and the rook is back into the game. So here he finds queen to g1 with check. King captures on g1, knight to f3 check, wins back the queen. So okay, king to f2, knight captures on d4, but now bishop captures on d4, and again, you cannot get your bishop to safety because checkmate is being threatened on h8. So bishop to g7 was played, but now rook to e7, again threatening the bishop. So your best option is not to capture the pawn, but it only leaves you down too much material. Bishop captures on g7, pawn to g5. Okay, there aren't really all that many great discoveries, as everything is on a light square. So bishop to d4 with check, king to g6, and king to g3. We have bishop to f5. Shakhriyar tried playing a few more moves, but after rook to g7 check, king h5, rook to f7, attacking the bishop, bishop g6, and rook f8. Bishop to b1 was played, but now Conrad just played king captures on h3, and he was in this position on move 44 that Shakhriyar Mamedyarov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. There isn't even a move you can try. Like, everything is completely tied up with the knight covering b7 and b3, and rook covering and rook covering b8. There's no way of actually getting the rook into the game. So here you're just stuck basically moving the bishop back and forth, and you allow white all the moves that white wants to make before deciding on how to win this game. Basically, white can win this game any way white chooses to. So yeah, great stuff by Conrad. It was a bit risky. If Mamedyarov played it correctly, you know, I wouldn't be able to pull this off, but such is the case with every brilliancy. You know, in order for a brilliancy to become possible, an imperfection has to be made in the position. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. The beautiful stuff by Conrad Holt here. I think this is the first time we feature him on the channel, and what a better way to be featured than by crushing a former 2800 member, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. I would like to thank Jack Schroeder, Soido Dia, Isaac Davis, Martin Georg Paparik, and Timothy Rozon for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the FIDE World Rapid Championship and checking up on your wonderful suggestions, such as this one. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.